Welcome to Modern Mystic Messages. I'm Teresa, and thank you so much for stopping by and clicking on the video. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. In any event, I'm happy that you're here. And may I say happy Sunday to you as well if you're watching this on the day that I'm actually uploading it. And Soul Family, I wasn't expecting to exactly go where we're going today, but I definitely hope that you'll stick around and we're going to see where the thoughts flow. I kind of sort of had a thought in mind where I wanted to go this morning with today's message. And then I had a couple other thoughts come in, so I had to wrap my head around that. But the way my clairaudience is set up, as they say, when subjects come in like that and aren't going anywhere, then I kind of know that, yeah, that's what it is. So I'm not shying away from it. But today, it is Sunday and we're going to church a little bit, okay? I promise you it's going to be easy church, but the thing that I had on my mind this morning was, well, the one that won out overall was the second coming of Christ. And my thoughts and feelings about the second coming were dramatically different from most people's most of my life. Like I said, my religious background didn't really teach the second coming of Christ the way most of Christendom did, or looks at it. So I actually wound up going, like, doing some Google and Wikipedia and this and that to make sure that my thoughts, what was coming in as far as my thoughts, were aligned. And let's just take a look at that because I want to start with the baseline of where most of Christendom is with it, and then look along with what I was looking at as far as, my thoughts were concerned with it. So when I went to, let me see. Oh, the reason I initially was going down that route, and this came to me a while back, I was watching a reading, and honestly, I don't even, I think the reader that I was watching was Tuki. I think she's in Australia or something. Beautiful girl, but she does a lot of channel messages and stuff. And she gave me a reading several. Well, it wasn't a personal reading, but I was drawn to her reading, and it had so many points of confirmation and synchronicities in it for me that I wound up literally taking about 5 pages of notes off of that. And I was going to do a video about it in and of itself at the time because I was just gobsmacked. There were literally, as she was channeling this message and doing the reading, there were either 36 or 39 points in her message that were a direct confirmation and or synchronicity for me. And something that she had said at 18 minutes 44 seconds in that reading got my attention so much so that I looked up whatever it was that she was talking about, but it also got on me, spirit led me to look up 1844. And when I did, I was looking for the angel number meaning, but it led me to another clue that I was unfamiliar with because of my religious background, but it tied into what I was aware of because of my religious background. And what it was, when I typed in 1844 spiritual meaning, instead of an angel number meaning coming up first, the first AI overview pointed to the Millerite movement. It says the year 1844 holds significant spiritual meaning, primarily within religious contexts. It's associated with the Millerite movement, a group that predicted the second coming of Jesus in 1844. This expectation led to what's known as the Great Disappointment when Jesus didn't return as expected. Additionally, 1844 is the year the Baha'i faith began, with the Baha'i declaring he was a messenger of God. Now, I wasn't aware that that was when Baha'i started, but I've mentioned it before on the channel, and I so wish that I could find the older documentary that I had watched. But years ago, I stumbled on a video, and a lot of the videos that I get led to somehow manage to get removed from YouTube. It's like it's there for a little time, but the information be like spilling way too much tea and they get pulled down. And this was one of those. It was talking about the founding of like a lot of the religions around the turn of the 20th century, going from the 19th century into the 20th century, there was an influx of religions. Especially, this documentary was primarily focused on the United States. I'm pretty sure it probably happened all around the world, but again, at the time I was nowhere focused on any of this stuff religiously. But I was trying to seek some personal answers. I had no idea I was going to be teaching it or talking about it to anybody else. But I found it interesting that from about 1850 or so, and again, I noticed the pattern because I was raised Jehovah's Witness. And we're taught the history of that organization. It started in 1879 with Charles Taze Russell, and then later on, uh, Judge Rutherford, I think, came in and kind of took over the show, and the whole organization kind of headed on a different trajectory than what Russell had initially started talking about. But within the span around the 1879-ish, 80-ish mark, between like 1870 or so and 1890, I think that's when Seventh Day Adventists popped off. And like, I can't remember if they were a few years before or after Russell's movement. And then the Mormons kicked off in like 1830. They were really, really early on the take. But then, and like I said, the Baha'i faith came along around 1844. And then, um, well, the Unity movement, and what was the Science of Mind. A lot of those, like I said, they're just now the documentary I was watching. There was a lot more than just that. A lot more. There was like 50 or 60 offshoots of some, basically offshoots of Christianity, but kind of going into their own thing. Not quite New Age, but not quite Christian. And that happened during that span. And a lot of them were so quirky till they basically, for example, one of them, I can't remember the name of it, but it was an organization that promoted complete celibacy, even for married couples. So, guess what? By the time they all died out, because they were all celibate, who was going to carry on the religious tradition? They didn't think that one through too tough. Their heart was in the right place, but yeah, they did themselves in one generation. But the one thing that was really, really noteworthy to me, it showed a movement of spirit. Whether I agree with their personal philosophies or whether I really thought that those people were actual prophets or not, there was a whole lot of people that were receiving some kind of information that was inspiring them enough that they were inciting other people to worship as well and actually leave different sects of Christianity and adopt their own. So something was happening on the planet during that time. And then, like I say, I went and read this information about this 1844 with the Millerite movement, and then when I went to the Great Disappointment in Wikipedia, it says that the Millerite movement followed Baptist preacher William Miller's proclamation that Jesus Christ will return to earth by 1844, which he called the Second Advent. His study of Daniel 8's prophecy during the Second Great Awakening led him to conclude that Daniel's cleansing of the sanctuary was cleansing the world from sin when Christ would come, and he and many others prepared. When Jesus didn't appear by October 22nd, 1844, Miller and his followers were disappointed. And then it said that those events paved the way for the Adventists who formed the Seventh day Adventist Church. They contended that what had happened on October 22nd was not Jesus' return, as Miller had thought, but the start of Jesus' final work of atonement, the cleansing in the heavenly sanctuary, leading up to the second coming. And Jehovah's Witnesses, early on in that time period, also, they felt like, Jesus was going to be entering the tabernacle and all of that. And I think Rutherford had, at first, he said that it was going to happen in like 1910. He named a specific day in like April of 1910 or something, and then 1919 and 1925. He kept trying to nail down specific dates, and then when that didn't happen, then they went back to the scriptures that say no one knows the day or the hour, not even the Son, but only the Father. But it made me start thinking about the things that we were talking about as far as like reading the Lost Book of Enki and learning about the Anunnaki leadings, and then reading the Gospel of John and being able to kind of connect those dots and see that very likely Yeshua had an Anunnaki link with him as well, whether he was the direct progeny of Enki or just an emissary sent by Enki. It's very clear from his teachings and the things that he said that he was very much not tapped into the Elohim Yahweh, but he was into the more peaceful Elohim, which of the ones that were around at that time, Enki always has been the more compassionate, most peaceful of all of them that they had to select from. We're taught monotheism, and I just saw something earlier today. Excuse me, I think it was on Myth Vision podcast, but it was an interview with Jordan Maxwell, and he was talking about, I think, monotheism versus hemotheism or whatever, or I think they call it that, henotheism. But anyway, the Jews were not monotheistic. Monotheism basically means that you are not acknowledging that there are any other gods. You believe that there is only one God. The Israelites always knew there was more than one Elohim, because guess what? They were serving a different one before Abraham came in and conscripted them all to serve Yahweh. And then Moses came back after they got captured. They were under another Elohim. And Moses led them out of Egypt, and they decided to adopt or allow Yahweh. They adopted Yahweh or allowed Yahweh to adopt them, but they knew there were plenty other Elohim, so they never were truly monotheistic. They were choosing to worship one God. But the idea of, when just looking at the clues, when Yeshua said that, he was going away to his father's house, and there he would prepare a place for. He said, in my father's house there are many mansions, there I go to prepare a place for you. And even in the Gospel of Judas, when he was talking to Judas and showing him the other realms and showing him the great crystal mansion and all of that, and told Judas that neither he nor any of the disciples of that generation would ever see that place, that it was preserved for the generation that is coming. And it kind of made me realize that yes, there would be a second coming of Christ. However, I think I mentioned it last week, I don't know if we're correct in looking for it to come in the physical form, because even Revelation doesn't necessarily indicate it's coming in the physical. We know most of Revelation is it was given as a dream, and there's some things in it that are very symbolic, and most people get caught up in trying to understand the symbology of Revelation, so I really think they missed the entire picture. But guess what? Most of these scriptures were coded because they're being written, transcribed, and all of that by mystics. And yeah, so that's just mystics and scribes and yogis and all of that kind of talking code. They're multi-layered meanings, and if you can get it, you can get it. But they had to at the time, because most of this stuff, there has always been a force in place that did not want the truth known. It's a great deception. And Yeshua said it was going to be a great deception. He said when he left that there would be those coming along that would lead mankind lost, that truthfully it's a great deception that has been put before us. Yeah, I said it. All of us. Took me 50 years to unravel a knot. I'm not saying there's nothing good in these texts, but we are completely misguided, deliberately, intentionally being misguided as to what the scriptures are, who they came from, who they were actually inspired by, and what they're here, what we were given them in this format to accomplish. All of that is a huge deception that has been played out upon humanity. But back to this second coming thing, let's go. I wanted to look, let me see here. After the great disappointment and all that, about the second coming, let me see. Oh, I wanted to read this too, because in the Wikipedia it says the second coming, also sometimes called the second advent or the parousia, is the Christian and Islamic belief that Jesus Christ will return to earth after his ascension to heaven, which is said to have occurred about 2,000 years ago. Is based on messianic prophecies and is part of most Christian eschatologies. In Islamic eschatology, Isa bin Maryam is also believed to return in the end times. According to Islamic belief, he will descend from heaven to defeat the false Messiah, restore justice, and reaffirm monotheism. His return is regarded as one of the major signs of the Day of Judgment and is viewed as a revered is viewed as a revered prophet, not divine, but a revered prophet in Islamic theology. Now, that when I sat and pondered on it a little bit, excuse me, I had to go back to Revelation because if we'll remember in the first part of Revelation, when John is talking about this is a revelation of Yeshua, which God gave him it says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants the things that must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John, who bore witness to the word of God and to the testimony of Jesus Christ, even to all that he saw. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and keep what is written, for the time is near. And then later on, we get down to verse 7. It says, behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all tribes of the earth will wail on account of him. Even so, amen. Now, again, I have my doubts as to who actually wrote this with all the interspersings of the amens and all of that. Kind of lets me know there's some more agenda going in there. However, again, they had the truth in plain sight. So if we can get past trying to figure out all of the symbology and just look at the overall bones of what's happening in Revelation, it gives us a huge clue to some of the things that was going on. Because honestly, I don't think Christians were all that wrong. Now, whether the year was exactly 1844 or whether it was 1830, 1850, again, we talked about the fact, I think yesterday I mentioned, when one zodiacal age is transferring to another, it's not an instant thing. That is a transition that can take up to 150 years to smoothly finish the transition. The zodiacal age is like 2,160 years, I think. Yeah. So it's not an instant turn the calendar page and boom, there we are. You're whole changing up whole entire systems of things, so it can take a little time. Now, let me see. I wanted to go. Oh, that was in. This was something over here. Yeah, he said to the angel in the church of Pergamum, write the words of him who has the sharp two-edged sword. I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is, yet you hold fast my name, and you did not deny my faith, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was killed among you where Satan dwells. So he keeps talking about bringing Satan low. And one of the things that I wanted to go and look at when it was talking about him coming back, because we've been in Revelation before, but I started somewhere around 18, 19, or 20, and I think it was here. Okay, in 7, he starts talking about the 144,000 that were being called out. And they had the horsemen and all of that stuff, the different seals being open in 6. But that wasn't what it was. Something that come to my mind here. We ain't going all the way through the whole thing because Revelation is deep and it's difficult to understand. Like I said, I think sometimes they get so caught up in what could this mean and what could they trying to lay blame. But the main thing to understand is the key characters that are being brought low in Revelation are Babylon the great harlot, and Satan the devil. Because he misled. It calls him the dragon and all this stuff. Because in 12. Wait a minute. Do I want to go? Yeah. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon with her under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains in the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. Now, this isn't Babylon. Wait a minute. Yeah, this was talking about the woman with the sun, the crown with the sun. It should have been the church, right? And she gave birth, but the dragon devoured it. The dragon killed her son and sent it back to heaven, who he was caught up to God and to his throne. God, Elohim, remember that term Elohim is very generic in the scriptures. So do not assume every time you hear God in the Bible is automatically talking about Yahweh. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Because he's saying that the dragon, Yaldabaoth, is Yahweh and is definitely a dragon. So it is symbol. It's all symbology in here, but you also have to understand the symbology that we're looking at is saying that the woman, which should have been the bride, what have you, of God, gave birth to this child that was supposed to rule mankind and show them the way. But instead, the dragon swept down. Not only did he come down, he swept down a third of the stars of heaven along with, got the watchers and all the rest of them on that team doing the wrong thing, remember? And when she gave birth to this male child to rule, but the child was caught up to God and to his throne. And then she fled into the wilderness, and she's to be nourished for 1,260 days. Now, it's been roughly, well, no, it's been longer than that. It's been 1,700 years since Christianity came along, but still, yeah. And then it says that Satan was thrown down to the earth. War arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Right there, plain English, Satan, the devil, is Yahweh, Enlil. Satan was his title in the Eden when he first got here. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God, before our God. And that was one of the things Jordan Maxwell was talking about in that piece. And if you get a chance, like I said, I believe it was on Myth Vision podcast, but it was an interview with Jordan Maxwell. It just got posted today, so it'll be very easy to find if you're interested. Excuse me. But the thing that he was saying when they were, the idea, but is with this henotheism, I can't remember exactly the term they used because I had never heard it before, but it was different than monotheism. But the idea was they were very well aware there were other gods, but they chose Yahweh as their God. It's like a covenant or contract with them. And he'd already told them he's a very jealous God. He's an exacting God. He said that out of his own mouth. And he made it clear, you done signed up. There's no take backsies. There's no getting out of this. From this day forward, you'll worship me. If you get caught worshiping anybody other than me, I'm authorizing the other folks that are faithful to me. If 2 of them catch you out there worshiping somebody other than me, they got my authority to stone you to death. Those are Yahweh's rules. So They chose to worship him, but it's not saying that he's the only God or that he even should be worshiped. That's the choice the Jews made. We don't have to keep going 100. If you know you going 100 miles in the wrong direction on the road, instead of asking somebody, stopping at the gas station, getting a map, checking a GPS, do something, or are you gonna just keep driving in the wrong damn direction? The Jews continued driving in the wrong damn direction, and Christians came right along behind with and continued down that same road instead of asking some questions and getting stopping somewhere and getting directions and getting the course correct. We love Yeshua, so let's go worship the people that killed him. Because they said that's what we supposed to do. They gave us this Bible and said that's what it is. Like, really? That's the part that I never understood. They talk about the Romans killed him, but the Romans was the ones that also founded this religion that gave you the Bible. Same people. Well, not the same exact one. It was a different emperor, but it was the same organization. Emperor Tiberius put him to death, and Emperor Constantine inserted him in their made up religion as a mascot. So true followers of Yeshua owe it to him, his memory, if they truly love him like they say they love him, listen to him. He told us, even in the messed up, remixed, adulterated word that we're given, it's still here in plain words. You don't know my father. You worship your father, the devil. That's not my father. He told him straight up, Yahweh is not his father. But anyway, and that was the thing that let me know when he does return. Christians are looking for Yahweh, for Yeshua to come back. Christians, Jews, and Muslims are looking for Yeshua to come back through an Abrahamic religion that is still giving allegiance to the same cat who wanted him unalived in the first place. That don't even make sense. That's some, what do they call that? Was it Stockholm syndrome? When you fall in love with your captor, Yeshua ain't getting down like that. They done killed him once. Why would he come back here physically and present himself right back to the same people that unalived him? And they still just as stubborn and still holding on to that lie 2,000 years later. All they would do is put him to death again. If he came back physically, tried to join up with them, that will not happen. I can promise you that ain't gonna happen. Even if he do come back here physically, he ain't gonna be at the First Baptist Church or nowhere, or the first imam. None of them. None of the temples, imams, majids. Nowhere will he be at any of those organizations, because he told me that himself. I thought I was super disrespectful because I thought that thought until he laughed and was like, no, 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 you heard what I said and whatever. Because I heard that. He was like, if I came back here physically, there's not any of these organizations or congregations that I'd be affiliated with. I'd sit down and braid another whip. That's what I would do. That's what I heard. And people can laugh at me and talk or whatever. They don't think my clairaudience is real. Well, guess what, y'all? I don't care what nobody think at this point, because I've heard it come in so sharply. Like I said, I've heard stuff that I didn't have no way of knowing whether it was true or not. I had to literally go online and look it up to find out. So I know I heard what I thought I heard, and I heard what he said. That's not going to happen. Now, when it said, we're talking about the dragon being thrown down. It said, I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. And they conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even unto death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows his time is short. That is Revelation 12. I think that was 7 through 12. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the two wings of the great eagle so that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness to the place where she is to be nourished for a time and a times and time and a half. A time's time and half a time. Now that time and half a time, Lord have mercy. I done sat and listened to more Bible lectures and talks and whatever, people trying to explain that from the Jehovah Witness standpoint. And trust me, I wish I had paid more attention to better notes, to be honest with you, because some of their research was pretty good, but I was just so sick to death of them trying to make sense out of nonsense that I can honestly say I don't remember how the way they tried to put it into the actual calendar and explaining like when Babylon fell and this and that and when the Romans invaded Persia and all of that. But truthfully, it's kind of immaterial because we just need to get to the good part of what's going to happen. Regardless of exactly the year it happens, we kind of need to understand what's going to happen and why, and which of the Elohim are orchestrating it, and which of the Elohim Yeshua is actually referring to and coming back here with, because he's not coming back alone. And that was the thing. I used to ask the question, and again, before I started trusting my clairaudience, I wondered, I'm like, okay, because I was into conspiracy theory. Like I was a conspiracy theorist, or I want to say conspirist because it's not even theory. Most of the conspiracy theories are more conspiracy fact than not. So more accurately, I would should have called myself a conspirist. But as I started like examining, putting together the dots of religion, and then seeing how the New Age movement was constructing, and I get it that the church wanted to point to all of that as bad and evil. However, I'm at this point, like I say, they say play a devil's advocate. I was just trying to look at everything and kind of decide what makes sense, what felt decent, how does this stuff actually fit into anything. And I realized everybody is saying that they've got the answer, but what if this and that are true? Meaning the whole alien agenda and the religious thing and the other. Because Yeshua said, go to the gate and the man with the water pitcher will show the way. That is a cryptic message pointing to the age of Aquarius. And I'm even more convinced than ever that that is exactly what that's pointing to now that we got through the lost book of Enki and come to realize one of Enki's epithets was Aquarius. He was like the prototype Aquarius astrologically. And Nana is a Venusian. So when they refer to Lucifer the morning star, or even call Yeshua the morning star in Revelation, that's ties to Venus, which both, like I said, Ishtar and Ninmah had those ties to Venus. But Enki is referred to as like the quintessential Aquarius. So if Yeshua was sent initially by Lord Enki, or was his son, which very likely could be, then when he comes back, he's going to be basically riding. He's been riding Team Enki the whole while, but we didn't get it when he tried to tell us the first time. But when he comes back, he's still going to be Team Enki, because it says that Satan is thrown down to the earth and he's let loose for a time. We go through all the rest of that. They had a lamb, the 144,000, all of the plagues are let loose. The angels come through. Archangel Michael is riding. The four horsemen is with him. Death is let out. They on there, they chopping, they kicking ass and taking names in Revelation, to the point that it says that towards the end of this that the blood was going to run, I forgot how many furlongs deep in the streets, that literally a third of the population of the planet would be wiped out, because those were the people that were still riding with the devil. But at the end of all of that, there's people that are being called out of that. The people that turned off their worship genie, the people that were trying to find a more compassionate, peaceful way, and they throw themselves at the foot of the throne. Well, guess what? If the devil done already been bound, who gonna sit on the throne? Now he been telling people he's the God of all, the only God that there is on the planet, and he made all the heavens and the earth, and he sat there and wore them lies like a champ, took it with his whole chest. But that don't make it true, because Revelation says he's going to be bound. And even when he's let loose, he's going to do his worst for a time, and then he's going to be put to death. That's in the book. And again, didn't understand how that was going to work out. But after reading the Lost Book of Enki, they exiled each other. Marduk got exiled. Alalu got exiled. Several of them acted, and in the Lost Book of Enki, Yahweh got exiled. Towards the end of it, when they all broke up after the war and all that, he kind of went off to himself. Like I said, he wound up over, oddly enough, toward what is now the Americas. That's where he went. Maybe that's why we the land of In God We Trust, even though it's one of the most ungodly places on the planet. Anybody ever thought about that? That part. But anywho, where was this? Let me see here. The second coming. Oh, well, this is where the riders had the rider on the white horse. I ain't gonna read all of this stuff. And then the angel coming down with the key to the bottomless pit and the great chain. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and threw him into the pit and shut it and sealed it over him, so that he might not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be released for a little while. Then I saw thrones, and seated on them were those whom the authority to judge was committed. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the testimony of Jesus and for the word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or its image, and had not received the mark in their foreheads or on their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is the one who shares in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. Now, I'm not going to argue whether or not the resurrection is a literal one or not a literal one. We could, because that's the point. People get so busy caught up in these little points in Revelation like that, when truthfully, Revelation might not even be an actual, factual, legitimate script. It could be an adaptation of something that they found to fit their scenario with Christianity, because we know 90% of the books leading up to it, from Acts of Apostles, when you get past Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, I think the Gospel of John was actually written by John. Matthew, Mark, and Luke were not. But from Acts all the way up to Hebrews was written by one man, and he had no affiliation whatsoever with Yeshua. So who's to say who actually wrote Revelation or not? I'm just saying, even if the entire book is not legit, under Luciferian law, they still embed the truth in plain sight. So we can kind of see what we can see in here that might make a little more sense than the soup they're cooking up for us. And when that, it says, when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison. He'll come out to deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the sea. And they marched up over the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints in the beloved city. But fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were. And they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Now, again, this is the scripture that they try to get people to be humans to be afraid of hell about. They've had humans afraid of hellfire for hundreds of years. The scriptures do not tell us that hellfire is for anybody human. It's for the devil and the legions that ride with him. Because in the book of Enoch describes a realm in one of the heavens. I forgot if it's 7 or 10 heavenly realms that he went to, but one of the heavenly realms is a place that is reserved. It's like a prison for these spiritual beings that misled humanity. They are exiled. It's like a prison for them, and it could, I guess, be likened to eternal punishment. Because I think he described a lot of fire and sulfur and whatnot there as well. But again, humans ain't got to worry about that because it's not a realm for our kind. It's for these folks. Then I saw a great white throne and him who was seated on it. From his presence, the earth and sky fled away, and no place was found for them. I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Then another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged by what was written in the books according to what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one of them, according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. But remember, Yeshua told us in the Gospel of John that his father judges very kindly. He said his father really don't judge at all. He judges, but his judgments are light. There are some that will be judged, but they're the ones that they will have proven themselves. This ain't no just you forgot to say I'm sorry or whatever. You if you weren't truly evil, you don't really have that much to worry about according to the scriptures. The ones that are being judged so harshly are the ones that were willfully following the beast, even though they should have known better. And then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. And the sea, and truthfully, it ain't even the first heaven and the first earth, because we saw in the lost book of Enki, there was already a cataclysm that wiped out, damn near wiped out Alkeplon and all of that before. The deluge covered almost everything. So that was the second, but anyway, they call it a new heaven. It didn't say, yeah, it was a new heaven and a new earth. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. Sound like a base camp. Prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more, neither will mourning nor outcry, nor crying, nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away. Enki was pushing to help mankind always, and he's wanted to be here. Now, we know that they had an aging discrepancy issue with, well, Galzu, the emissary that was not from there. We think that it was from the divine creator, had already said that they could not go back to Nibiru. We don't know whether or not in the internal rejuvenation chambers were sent here. We don't know whether or not elixir or fruit or bread of life, tree of life, because a lot of that was destroyed in the flood. They had brought like bread of life. They had brought the seeds of life and the elixir of life with them, but a lot of that stuff was destroyed during the flood. But we don't know whether more was sent for them if they were still here having to maintain. But in any event, wherever he went to, sound like he didn't got a little bit of rejuvenation or a little shot in the arm. And like I said, it wasn't all that long ago by their years. It's just been a long time by our estimation. And let me see. And he was seated on the throne and said, behold, I'm making all things new. And also he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give the spring of the water of life without payment. Do that sound like Yahweh? He been taxing folks ever since he got here. He was willing to kill a whole nation just because they made him mad. He was willing to wipe out a whole tribe because they woke him up from his sleep. He ain't giving nobody no, because he refused to give them the life of water. They could have gotten it before. Our telomeres could have been uncapped before. Our worship gene could have been shut down before. But Yahweh wouldn't have none of that. He was the one insisted on a worship gene. He was the one insisted that we never got a chance to eat from the tree of life, that we never got a chance to drink from the waters of rejuvenation. Those were all things that were reserved for them so they could live long. But humans were to never touch any of it. That's why he kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden and put guards up with flaming swords to see to it that they couldn't get access to any of that stuff. So it's highly unlikely that the one that's coming back with this new Jerusalem is Yahweh, because he never wanted humans to have any of that. But Enki did. And he said, the one who conquers, I will have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, the sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. And again, fittingly so, because the church would have you believe that New Age teaching is evil and wicked, but all occult knowledge is not evil and wicked. Occult just means hidden. Now there is dark spirituality. I cannot argue that point because there's people every day talking about how to get out from under some spell work. But people that are doing that are typically Satanists or Luciferians, which is in this day and time, Luciferianism and Satanism is just backdoor Yahwehism. So if they line up with that stuff and doing all that dark magic and spell casting and this and that and all that evil crap, yes, they're going to be destroyed right along with him. Because they know the ones that are doing that and are trapped in like that, they already know it's evil. The ones that don't know are, like said, the truly innocent people that have been truly fooled, sitting in a church pew because their mama and their grandmama and their great grandmama did. They don't generally even know what it is they're doing because all they've been given is the kindergarten understanding of this book. This book is so coded and layered and coded, meaning that you genuinely you have to delve through it and go through it several times. You can sit in church all your life under a lay preacher and just go to your Sunday sermons and you will have the kindergarten understanding of this book. If you dig a little further and maybe go and study religious studies somewhere, you'll get the high schooler understanding of this book. When you open your third eye and open yourself to be taught by spirit and your guides, then you will begin to get the postgraduate understanding of this book. And once you get the postgraduate understanding of this book, you can put it aside if you choose to, or you can look at it for the value of what's in it, but you'll see it in a completely different way. And then let's see. And yeah, I would say we don't have to read the rest of that because it basically just describes that new Jerusalem that was coming down and they measured and all that. But I'm telling you, because it says it's 144 cubits by human measurement, which is also an angel's measurement. And then they had the temple. It said there was no temple in the city because the temple is with the Lord God and the Almighty and the Lamb. And the city didn't need lamps because they had the sun and all of that. But what they're describing honestly sounds like a base camp. They have gates and all of that to the city and blah, blah, blah. They're setting up to replenish and rebuild the earth after this last skirmish in the Anunnaki Wars, because they can call it the Battle of Armageddon at all they want. That's only because it says that the battle is going to take place at Megiddo. But what's described there in Revelation is the final skirmish in the Anunnaki Wars. These cats been fighting on this planet for 300,000 years. And it's going to end according to that. So yeah, there's a second coming of Christ, and I believe it's super close. That's one of the reasons that I talk the way I do, and I have that sense of urgency going back through these ancient texts and seeing what we can pull out of it and all of that. Like I said, last year I was given that understanding or that thought to consider the movie Knowing with Nicolas Cage. I think they made that movie in 2009. I ain't saying you got to see it because it's not, to me, it's not as significant or monumental as, say, The Matrix or What Dreams May Come or something like that. But the premise of that movie was they knew a cataclysm was coming to Earth that was going to basically scorch the entire face of the Earth. It was going to potentially wipe out all humanity. And there was an alien, I should call it extraterrestrial because they really don't like being called alien. And truthfully, they're not aliens. We got their DNA in them. The only reason we're sentient, intelligent beings is because we got their DNA in them. Even the first wave, the Adamu and Eve Tiamat, they were devolving so rapidly that Enki had to infuse his DNA at several points along the line in our history, and had the other one, Adapa and TT, came along because their human mothers, I think their human mothers were like half or quarter, whatever. They had some Anunnaki blood in them, obviously, and then he made it with them and had children with them to have more Anunnaki blood infused into the human genome. That's the only reason we still here anyway. So everything that has been done to try to preserve humanity has been done by Lord Enki. And he understands, he at this point he said, and he struggled with whether or not they were tweaking destiny or if they were messing with fate by doing what they did. But once they did it and he got that message from Galzu, and then later on, Enlil had a dream from Galzu, but he didn't tell nobody until after they had unleashed the weapons of terror. But Enki has that understanding that the creator of all, the one who actually made the initial hominids that we were adapted from, now that the Anunnaki have interfered and did alter our DNA and gave us intelligence and all of that and created Homo sapiens sapiens, the creator of all has determined that we are to be able to stay here. We are to be preserved, that whatever happens, this is our home and it's supposed to be our home. And therefore, Enki and those who are on that side of the issue with him have determined that when the next cataclysm comes, that he'll do everything in his power to see to it that a contingent of us, if not all of us, can be saved. A contingent of those who are able to be saved, who do have the understanding of who we are and what's going on, and are able to turn our worship gene off and willing to work cooperatively with him, and not will still wanting to cling to Papa Yahweh and them lies. The ones who are able to survive and willing to move forward peacefully into new earth will be spared, even if they have to come down here and take us up in spaceships until that cataclysm is over. Hollywood then showed it to us in plain sight in that movie, and in Sarah and others too. But it struck me in that one because they knew it was coming. They kind of knew when it was coming and all that, and they couldn't save everybody, but they carefully decided. And most of whom they saved were children, because the children ain't bullheaded and super programmed with all the nonsense and the lies. But they also had several adults that they would be able to teach and guide those children. But the whole idea was they took up, I forgot how many of them it was, like I don't know if it was 150 or 1,500, however many it were. They took those up into the spaceship so that they would not be on the planet when whatever that was that came through. And the last scene of that movie is the Flash came, and then after it died down and they were able to go back, they would be the ones to form New Earth, which is kind of sort of what describes here, except the cataclysm at the end of Revelation doesn't indicate that everybody's going to have to be taken up off of the earth. It just indicates that there will be a very heavy loss of life. But that's actually in the skirmish of the war. We don't know what's going to happen in the cataclysm, because the cataclysm is not something caused by the Anunnaki. I actually think it has to do with a certain time, at certain points in Nibiru's planetary orbit, ever so many 100,000 years or whatever, it comes so close to Earth's orbit that it disturbs our poles, our magnetic everything, and it causes so many natural disasters that it can shift the Earth. However, they said it won't be by water this time. They know it's going to be by fire. Now, again, who am I to question them? I don't know. They can see way further ahead because they, like I said, they got the instruments. They know what's coming out there. If there's an asteroid out there, another one that's going to hit, because something that already hit the moon once, something hit the earth once. We don't know what it is that's going to cause that, but whatever it is, the scriptures indicate that earth has been given to the sons of man, and forever we will reside upon it. And Lord Enki has said he will do everything within his power to preserve us, if we'll just stop being so bullheaded that we can't believe it. That's the part that I struggle so hard with, because people are so willing to believe everything that Yahweh done spoon fed them. even though he's never done anything for humanity but caused pain and grief. But they refuse to believe that there could be a kinder, gentler brother who actually wants to help us. That's brainwashing, people. Why wouldn't you want to believe in the kinder, gentler one? It amazes me. But like I say, once I learn the difference, I'm Team Inky all day. I have no trouble believing that he's real. I believe I spent the first half of my life believing Yahweh was real, even though he, like you say, he ain't doing nothing but causing hell and confusion here. And now that I understand that, I have no trouble understanding that Lord Enki is just as real as Lord Yahweh was. But Lord Enki is even more real because he's not willing to keep telling us the lie that he's the be all end all creator of all the universe. He's telling you the truth. I'm a dude who came from Nibiru and we got too big for our britches. We were desperate. We came here to do one thing, but things got out of hand. We dared to play God. All our children and grandchildren got out of line too, and they made a hot mess here. But if you'll allow me to, I'll help correct it. That's what he promised, and I'm here for it. That's all we going with today, folks. On here, I didn't mean to rock out that long with this, but I appreciate you rocking out with me. So definitely, if you have any thoughts, comments, concerns with it, let's be respectful and kind. Don't, like I say, I get it. Everybody may not agree with what I got to say, but it came from the scriptures. It's just a different look, a different angle at the scriptures, if you will. So definitely leave me a comment. And until next time, oh, later on we will be getting into the Enuma Elish, and I have a couple other messages that go out, and I think there'll be another reading coming out later. Maybe we're getting a little bit late in the evening. I'm not sure, but we'll see. But in any event, family, peace and blessings to you. I love you. Namaste.